State MPs are resisting mounting pressure to forego a $57,000 pay rise. Local councillors will also get a boost in line with recent increases for federal politicians. Unions are demanding the government amend the law which ties Queensland to the Commonwealth system.
Very few current or former MPs are brave enough to speak up in support of higher wages for politicians. But former Labor Minister Robert Schwarten won't be swayed by the acting Premier's promise to name and shame anyone who asks for back pay.
The day that Jeff Seni's my conscience, you'll find me in a madhouse.
Whether or not anyone seeks back pay, MPs are getting a $57,000 pay rise. Unions don't buy the excuse that the Parliament is legally obliged to match increases given to federal politicians. The simple solution is to amend the law and separate Queensland MPs from federal pay rates.
If the government do not rescind this decision to pay themselves 42% in one increase, we will not let the Queensland people forget. This is going to be a major issue through to the next election.
Governments can, of course, change legislation, but the current legislation is there at the moment, and the current legislation is what the government is abiding by.
A crossbench MP has called for retrospective laws to remove the possibility of any MP claiming back pay.
I think the right thing to do here is not to use naming and shaming, which is a bullying tactic. I think the correct thing is to have retrospective legislation.
We think retrospective legislation is repugnant.
To offset the cost of the pay rise, the government will halve the amount of money paid to political parties. But it was going to do that anyway, among a range of electoral reforms. In fact, there'll be no public funding for anyone who polls less than 10%. But on the other hand, a cap on private donations will be removed. Other changes include proof of ID when voting and a trial of electronic voting.
Reforming the electoral system to the modern world we now live in.
And extending state parliamentary terms to 4 years is still under consideration. But a call to make voting voluntary has been rejected. Voting for someone in your electorate to earn $195,000 a year remains compulsory. Chris O'Brien, ABC News, Brisbane.